So to get started, we're going to begin laying on our backs in an incline, or you can use your props or bolster in any way that feels most supportive for your back. The idea here is just to create a nice opening of the heart and something that you can settle into your body, your breath, and to begin to let go of the mind. And so how I like to set up my bolster, just knowing that my bolster is super thin. If you have a thicker bolster, you might not need the use of the block. Just creating this little incline. And sit your hips in front of the bolster with a little bit of space, and then lay all the way back. And once you lay back, you might decide to inch your hips a little bit further forward. This will just create a little less pinch in the low back, especially if your low back is tender in any way. You're looking for added stability to the hips, the low back. You can bring your feet onto the floor, keep the knees bent. If you're looking for an inner hip opening, you could take soles of the feet, knees out to the side, maybe add a couple pillows to the outer thigh, just some support or to take some of the edge off the opening. And then one of my favorites as well is just to straighten the legs long, give the hip flexors an opportunity to lengthen. And then draw the shoulders back, tuck them right beneath the base of the heart, take the hands wide. And then gently blink the eyes closed from there. Take a few moments now just to simply take inventory of what is present for you. Is the mind busy? Is it running wild with thought? Is it a little more quiet and contemplative? And take note what is present for you physically. Is there anything in particular that needs care and tending to in this evening? And how of the heart, and how are you feeling emotionally? Again, is there anything you wish to nourish within yourself and in this time? And let these thoughts just serve as a little bit of an inquiry, a way for you to start to cultivate an intention for your practice, what you most likely wish to call in and nourish from this time, from this practice. It could be as simple as being tender and compassionate with yourself, patient, or even letting yourself off the hook. Freeing yourself from distractions, obligations. Just let whatever naturally bubbles up, bubble up. And as you sift through these thoughts and this contemplation, maybe a word starts to encapsulate all that you're calling in. Let this serve as your foundation, almost like an anchor, if you will, so that if your mind starts to wander or you get distracted, you can come back to this and let it ground you and root you once again. You could even use your imagination and envision this word or maybe a couple words, a mantra, being placed inside the vessel of the breath so that every breath you breathe is continuously bathing you, whispering to you with your intention. And so continue to breathe here for the next 20, 30 more breaths. In fact, you can leave all responsibility of time to me. Let yourself off the hook. Just breathe, feel, and settle in here. And now that you've had a few moments to settle into the breath itself, can you feel its wave like movement throughout the body? Each time you breathe in, can you feel the wave roll and crest its way all the way to the center of your heart? And as you breathe out, can you feel the wave of breath retreat out? You might feel this wave of breath move across the belly, widen the ribs, and eventually broaden the chest, the collarbones. And with the exhale, the same wave of breath to retreat out of the heart, the ribs, and eventually the belly. Notice all that is expanding. Notice all that is softening. The myriad of movement created by the breath, even as you rest and abide in stillness. Continue to breathe. We'll be here for a few more rounds of breath. As you rest here, if the knees are drawn wide, draw them together. Allow the feet to then toe heel a little bit wider so that the knees are slightly knocked inward. And this way, if the knees were drawn out, it's a little bit of a counter to the hips, helps to create a little balance here. In these last couple breaths here, if you're looking for even more expansion of the chest, you might explore taking the hands wider, even reaching them overhead. And as you exaggerate the expanse of the arms, the chest, you might even experience an expanse of the breath, exploring the relationship between the breath and the shape of the body. Take a good 2, 3 more breaths here. And then moving at a snail's pace, gently roll over onto your side. Tuck yourself in for a moment or two in your own embrace here in the fetal position. And then from there, press the earth away and begin to rise forward and up in preparation for child's pose. For child's pose, take the big toes to touch the knees, nice and wide up to the side. Reach for your block. You might under that's underneath your bolster, and you might even lift it a little higher so that the props are flush. You might prefer no props at all, or you might still like the incline. Entirely up to you. In fact, give yourself time and permission to really experiment and explore with the props and see to utilize them to really support yourself in creating a release response, a sense of ease and effortlessness in the shape. If being on your knees feels tender, my suggestion would be to take a little extra cushion or padding underneath the knee. Sometimes even placing it underneath the shin can actually take even more pressure off the knee. And if having the knees bent is a little intense, then you can always take a blanket roll, tuck it right behind the knees. This takes the bend out of the knee a little bit, and it can help to alleviate some pressure. An alternative, you could even explore this pose on your back with the knees hugged into the chest. And then from there, drape your torso over the bolster, little to no weight in the arms, and either cheek or ear can come to the bolster. At any point in time, you can reposition your head, turn it right or left. Otherwise, blink your eyes closed and once again retreat inward. Send your awareness back into the cadence, the rhythm of the breath. Feel the back body expand, a similar wave like quality. This time moving across the back body as opposed to the front body. Almost like a tender massage coming from within, reaching to the outer surfaces of the skin. This posture has many benefits, particularly in releasing the low back as well as the front of the shins. And we'll be here for several more minutes. So at any point in time, you need to adjust, come out of the pose or head a little deeper in, so that you can always adjust the dial of the posture to make it just right for you. Take another few rounds of breath here. You might even hold the breath in at the very top and feel the expanse from within, deepening the pose by deepening the breath, naturally allowing the inhale to eventually spill over to the exhale, letting it empty completely. Take one more breath in and one more breath out. And then from there, begin to gradually shift your way forward onto all fours. Feel free to weave in any gentle movement. You might love stretching one leg back and then the next, just lengthening out the legs once again, or a little cat cow or jump rope with the spine. Try not to think too much about it. Just move, let the body guide you. And then setting your props off to the side, still within reach. From kneeling, moving into an open twist, initially ground down into your left hand. Sweep and reach your right arm straight up to the sky for a moment. And then follow the exhale, thread the right arm underneath and through, and lower your shoulder, cheek, and ear down onto the mat. From there, you can keep the left hand in place or walk it forward. Feel free to experiment. There's even a variation with the left leg stretched long, rolling further open, if that's your flavor. The objective here is to create a gentle twist through the mid and upper back while releasing the shoulder, the posterior shoulder, so right behind the scapula or the right wing of the shoulder. Now, if the floor feels far away, my suggestion is just fill in those gaps with a blanket, a pillow, or a bolster. Make sure there's no strain to the head and neck. In fact, you can even do this posture kneeling without the twist by guiding the right arm across the chest. There's also the benefit of a mild inversion here. So that's going to stimulate a little bit of blood flow throughout the body. So if you've been feeling a little low, or if you feel like a sense of stagnation, it can help to move some of that out of the body, cultivating a little more balance. And again, similar to child's pose, by deepening the breath, you can actually deepen the expanse from within. Particularly at the top of the inhale, if you hold the breath in as full as you can be, you might feel a little more stretch, particularly in the right ribs, the right shoulder area. And of course, the bigger the inhale, the bigger the exhale. And upon the bottom of the exhale, right as you empty all of the breath, you might notice the body sinking in a little deeper into the earth, just facilitating the release. Again, exploring this relationship between this reciprocal relationship between the breath and the posture and how they can work together to deepen the release. Follow this next breath in. Feel it move all the way out. And then to unravel, slowly sweep the right arm back up to the sky. And then release the right hand back to the middle. Same thing left side. So grounding in initially to the right hand. Open twist, sweep, and reach your left hand high. From there, exhale, thread the left arm underneath and through, settling the left shoulder, cheek and ear down onto the mat. Make any last minute little personal adjustment. Blink the eyes closed, and then dive your awareness back in. When we concentrate the mind into the breath, it naturally lengthens the inhales and exhales. It also starts to shift the mind out of the busyness of everyday life and gives the intellect an opportunity to rest. All of this helps to shift the body into a more parasympathetic state, so out of fight or flight, and into rest and digest. And this is where we have a release response, and the tissues are more apt to let go and release. Continue to breathe here for several more. Last full cycle of breath here. Eventually unraveling, sweeping, reaching the left hand high up to the sky. And then from there, release your left hand back to the mat. Again, here, any little micro movements, you might swivel the hips, move through a little cat cow, or roll out the shoulders, the head and neck. And then eventually lower all the way onto your abdomen. You like a blanket roll across the front of the hips. That can feel nice too. And then stretch the legs as far back as they'll reach. You might explore taking the feet wider. See how that feels in the low back. Compare and contrast that with the feet closer, and then choose what feels best in your spine. And then cross the arms right in front of you, just the forehead rest onto your forearms for a few moments here, just letting the spine settle in. If you prefer a cushion underneath the head, you can always do that too. As simple as this posture is, it's highly beneficial for disc health, and for the discs in the spine, particularly the little jelly in between the discs. If you're ever working with any disc related issues, this is something that to incorporate kind of like an apple of the day, once a day, a couple times a day, even 5 minutes here and there. Now start to layer in a little bit of a shoulder opening. So reach for your block, place them about shoulder width apart. And I like the second highest setting. You can play around with the different height settings, a little higher, a little lower. And then tuck them right underneath the heads of your shoulders so that the front of the shoulders are fully supported. I like a bolster or a pillow right in front of my head so that as my head comes forward, there's no strain to the back of the neck. Having said that, you might love the stretch and the release through the back of the neck. So you can always place your forehead onto the floor if you prefer. There's several different placement of the hands. You could have them forward, you could have them out to the side. My favorite variation is to extend them straight back. So feel free to play around and see what feels best in your body. And this posture now in this variation helps to create a little lift of the heart, helps to expand the chest, the shoulders, and reintegrate the shoulders onto the back body. Settle back into the breath. And as you breathe in, feel the chest expand, the back of the heart widen. And then follow the breath to the very bottom. You might even hold the breath out to witness the response of the body as well as the mind, allowing the chest to sink closer to the earth as the shoulders wrap behind the heart once again. Begin to bring your hands forward if they're stretched back. You have a pillow underneath your head, soft, or just set it off to the side. And you can also place the blocks off to the side as well. From there, bring the elbows to an L shape. Either elbows underneath or the arms rather to an L shape, the elbows underneath the shoulders, or maybe even a little further forward, just depending on how this feels in your low back and spine. For me, my hips tend to tilt a lot forward. So if you find it more support, if you find a pinch in the low back, like I tend to, just give a little drawing up of the low belly, almost like you're trying to pick your mat up with your navel, and lengthen your tailbone slightly towards the earth, creating a little cinching action to support and strengthen around the low back. And the objective here isn't to deepen a curve in the low back, but rather to deepen the opening in the heart. And blink your eyes closed and settle into the breath. We'll be here for another minute or so in length, but you have options. You can stay exactly as you are. You can also lower your chin to the chest to create a deliberate stretch or release in the back of the neck. If you're looking for a little more lift and opening to the heart, you can take your hands a little wider and then start to press into the hands, lift the elbows, and peel up through the heart. Again, make sure that this isn't coming into the low back. You can cinch up, lengthen the tailbone. If you're craving any more opening than that, you can always walk the hands a little bit higher. And if you've gone into territory that feels like it's a little too much, just rewind the pose to where it's sustainable, where it feels just right. About 4 or 5 more rounds of breath here. Begin to lower all the way back to the floor. Crisscross the arms. And if you feel like wagging out the hips a little left and right, feel free to do so. And just give yourself an opportunity for the spine to reset. When your front spine starts to feel more neutral, take your right arm out to the side. Two options here. So either an L shape or straight arm. This straight arm variation is a little less sensational. This L shape has a little more sensation to it. And so once you take the right arm out to the side, put it in place, begin to roll open onto your right side. You might feel your top leg start to reach back. Trust that. It's a way of supporting the low back. And then let the head rest onto the floor. Now, if the head coming to the floor, it creates a strain through the head and neck. Then just simply draw your left arm underneath, or you could reach for your bolster or pillow and offer yourself some support. It can be common for the hips to twist all the way back. So make sure that that's not coming into the low back. Let the opening to come into the heart and into the chest area. This is one of my favorite postures to balance out the shoulder girdle by broadening the chest muscles, the pectorals, and then reintegrating the shoulder, repositioning the scapula, the shoulder blade onto the back body. Facilitate the opening, the release, send your awareness back into the breath. Allow all of the other stuff in life to wait. Instead, rest and breathe. Begin to now roll back through to center. Same thing, left side, take the left arm straight out to the side or in an L shape, and then roll to your left side. And now begin to roll all the way back to center. Again, shake out the hips. Eventually tuck your hands underneath your shoulders. With the strength of your arms, press over your knees and sit back into child's pose momentarily. We're not here for very long, just a few breaths to reset the spine. If there's some other pose or movement you're craving, feel free to take it. And then from there, begin to shift forward. As many coming on to into kneeling. And there's many ways to play around with the blocks. We're coming into sleeping swan or pigeon pose. There's many ways to use the props. Today, I'm going to offer having blocks or a bolster up front or some cushions, and then spreading the bolster at a diagonal so that your shin is placed right in front of it and your hip is completely supported. Your knee is on the earth. Your shin is at about a 45-degree angle, and your hips are fully supported by the bolster itself. This is one of my favorite variations. Having said that, you might decide you don't want the bolster underneath the hip, you might like it or prefer it out in front of you, or some other variation. So choosing what is best for your body. And then as long as it feels okay in the low back, the knee can start to fold forward. For me, I've got a little bit of a tweak in my low back and some things going on in my hips. So I'm going to move more gently with this, not really approach the edge, but rather rewind the pose to where I feel it's more sustainable. Just working with a bit of an injury, error, or erring on the side of caution, about say 20 to 30% of my full range of motion. I can go further, but it could be detrimental today. So just rewinding, always adjusting the pose so that it's most beneficial for your needs on that day. Last couple breaths here. And beginning to walk your way back up a little more upright through the spine. You might lean over to the right side, swing the left leg forward, or alternatively switch the right leg back, just giving yourself an opportunity to unravel the right leg. And when you're feeling called to move on to the next leg, simply begin to set yourself up, adjust your props, take care so that the shape is in alignment with your intention. And know that as you move symmetrically through the body, you might find asymmetry. So you might need more support on the left side versus the right, or maybe a little less. So always giving yourself permission, taking the initiative to make the pose your own. Then once you've found a sweet spot that you're ready to settle in, close your eyes and focus your attention back into the breath, exploring all the ways in which you can soften into the shape you're in. And then slowly rising back up onto your hands, leaning well over to the left. Swing the right leg forward or stretching the left leg back. Again, just creating balance in the right leg and left leg. And then again, setting your props off to the side, but always within reach. Begin to position yourself onto your back. Have your strap handy. Once you lay onto your back, start with the knees bent. Feet flat onto the floor. And just give yourself a chance to settle in. As you find the spine arrives, take your strap and place it across the mound of the right foot. Wrap the strap around your hands to create a good solid anchor. And then flex the ankle slightly so that your toes are starting to move more towards your nose. And this will help to take the release not only into the hamstring, the back of the right leg, but also into the lower leg, so the back of the lower right leg, into the calf, maybe even into the Achilles. You might even feel some of this move into the sole of the foot. And then you can play around with the depth of stretch. You can see what it's like to take the toes a little higher, reach them a little further forward. What you do want to make sure is that you're not pulling so much that your low back flattens out too much or that your bottom starts to lift too much off the floor. In fact, you want to make sure that there's still a natural curve to the spine. That way, it isolates the opening in the back of the leg, and then you're not pulling from the SI joint or across the low back and the buttock. And once you've found a sweet spot, a couple options. You can keep your left knee bent just as it is. This offers a little more stability, or you might love the sensation of stretching the left leg long. And it can be tempting to pull, to prod to the point that the leg is almost shaking, but usually that's the body offering resistance. And so here we just want to create a deep tensile sensation through the back of the right leg, and then just use time and the breath to encourage the sensation to dissipate. When the sensation dissipates, you can always explore a little more range. And now take your strap into the right hand and begin to guide the right leg out to the side. You might like a block or the bolster to the outer right leg just to give yourself something to rest into, or you can even use the strength of your arms just to so that the right leg doesn't open up so much that there's too much sensation to the inner groin. For me, that sometimes feels really too intense. And again, if you're looking for added support, even the block on higher setting can help to kind of rewind the posture to where it's a little more sustainable. And this will be a little bit of a shorter hold. Guide the right leg now back to center and take your strap into the left hand. Now, if you haven't already straightened your left leg, straighten it all the way. Bring your right thumb to your right hip crease and draw the right hip slightly down as you simultaneously guide your right leg over to the left side about 2/3 of the way. This will be a little more active. You'll continue to draw, let the right hip get heavy as you simultaneously press your right heel to the upper left corners of the room. I mean, this might activate sensation to the outer right hip, outer right thigh. I even feel this into the outer right lower leg. Here you can use your imagination and envision the breath flooding to the space where you feel the most sensation. Make sure there's still a natural curve to the low back. You're not hollowing out or tucking your butt under. And now guide the right leg back over the toe, overhead. Reach the toes over the nose. You're going to slip the strap off the right foot and lower the right leg alongside the left. Let's take a couple moments here just to observe. Does the right leg feel the same or different than the left? What has changed? How do you feel through the foot, the knee, the low back, and some of the other parts of the body in relationship to the movement we just made? And then evening things out, walk the feet back in, place a strap across the left foot, and extend the left foot skyward. A little flap of the hands around the strap. And then again, play around with the depth of stretch. Choose what's best for you. And now take the strap into the left hand. And begin to guide the left leg open to the side. Again, remember you can always restrict it a little bit with some strength of the arms so that there's not too much sensation to the inner groin, or use a block to the outer left leg, playing around with the different height settings so that you have some support. A little bit of a shorter hold for this next one. And now guide the left leg back overhead. Take the strap into the right hand. The right leg is bent, stretch it long. Left thumb to the left hip crease, drag it slightly down, create your anchor. And simultaneously guide the left leg over to the right side, a good 2/3 of the way. A little more activation with the left hip getting heavy as you reach through the left heel. Close your eyes again and breathe. Now guide the left leg back overhead. Reach your toes over your nose one last time. And then slowly lower left leg alongside the right. Again, a couple moments to just simply observe, to notice. And when you're feeling called to settle into Shavasana, start to make your way there. You could lay exactly as you are. You might prefer to drape your legs over a bolster, set of blocks, an ottoman. You might prefer meditation, seated upright. In whichever shape you choose, let it be effortless. Might like an eye pillow, some covering. And then follow this next breath in all the way to the very top. Hold it in a moment. And with an open mouth exhale, let it softly release. A couple more breaths just like that. You can even add a little force emptying the breath. Let a little sigh out, some sound, some vibration to help with the release and invite an even greater state of ease. And then begin to let go, almost like you're falling through water. Surrendering all pieces of your identity, the hats you wear, roles you play. letting go of all definition of body, of mind, and coming home to yourself, feeling into the essence that is you, breathing into the essence you that is you, perfect, whole, and complete as you are now. Om Namah Shivaya. Gurave Satchidananda Sai Nishprapanchaya Shantaya, nearby, Tejase, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Begin to deepen the breath once again. Layer on a little movement, wiggle fingers, toes, or reach into a great big stretch. From there, hug both of your knees deep into your chest. Give yourself a great big squeeze. With care, rock left and right or forward and back. And eventually transition your way to seated. Once you arrive into seated, bring your hands to prayer or place them over your heart and bow slightly inward. Acknowledge the you that showed up on his or her mat today and took this time for yourself to nurture, cultivate balance, and to give back to your being. Carry with your intention this sense of self, connection to the breath off the mat into your days ahead as you live through your yoga. Thank you so much. Namaste.